BFM 89.9, welcome to Morning Headlines. I'm Nadia Hassan, sending in for Sharad Kutan while he builds a soup kitchen in some rural Indian village. And the headlines on the third day of the new year all have to do with the raid that happened last night. I happened to catch this on the 8 o'clock news, and I was wondering how the papers would make of it. Predictably, some were for it, some a bit more against it. But the one that actually had the most was actually the Malay Mail. They were more balanced. And the main thing that they're calling for is to keep calm. For those of you not in the know, what happened was JIS raided the Bible Society of Malaysia yesterday, seized a whole bunch of Bibles, which are in the Malay language. And the shocking thing about this was they came with the cops. There was no warrant, no order. They actually just knocked on the door, and when people didn't want to let them in, they said they would barge their way in anyway, and that's what happened. So obviously this is a powder keg. It can be a powder keg waiting to just explode, spilling over from the Allah issue. So now that's why Malay Mail urges you to keep calm. You know, it talks, and to be fair, that's extremely fair advice. Things with hot heads never really work. So basically, politicians, religious and community leaders appeal for the following on raid of Bible Society in Malaysia and the seizure of more than 300 Bibles. I think that's fairly good advice, because right now I think what's needed is hopefully discussion and not so much jumping or pointing the finger, you know, that I'm sure that sometimes will happen on social media. Actually, if you read the online blogs, they will actually tell you that they actually have no right, because JIS has no kind of jurisdiction over non-Muslim residents of Malaysia. And then if you go to The Sun, they have an even more adamant, just stop it. You know, and I fully more echo that as well. So police also warn against against holding protests outside churches. That is not good. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, national unity, you know, it's Visit Malaysia year, everybody's be happy. It's definitely, you cannot have protests out churches. Again, it just needs to have discussion. Why does it have to kind of stoop to kind of this level? And then the other interesting bit in the papers was that the Malay Mail actually interviewed the state exco. So the Selangor government was not consulted on the raid by the state Islamic department. It said its exco member for Islamic affairs, Salehan Muki. So he said that the state government was only informed after the raid, but no further information was given. So it's now a question of who actually authorized the raid, if that's what you want to, you know, that's the next question on the list. This is definitely such an incendiary situation, and hopefully that, you know, calmer heads will prevail in this, because it's something you definitely do not need going into the new year. But Utusan always talks about JIS bertindak. Theirs is a bit more isu kalimah Allah, serbu prenis tu individu ditahan. So he just gives a snap-by-shot about what happens, but not really kind of weighing in on the matter. Funnily enough, both NST and Star did not touch on it almost at all, at least not on the front page headlines. NST went with this interesting split screen of smoother highway drive. This is actually in relation to getting rid of toll booths. Too much hope to get rid of tolls, right? To get rid of toll booths where you'll just have gantries. And hopefully that sort of like what they do in Singapore, and how you can just drive through and it will clock immediately, so you have no more congestions at toll, which is actually fairly a good idea. They say it's to basically stop people from, you know, from cheating at tolls. But let's be fair, as long as there have been fares, there have been fare jumpers, so I'm sure somebody will just find another smarter mousetrap, as they say. So what's happened now when people want to cheat tolls is basically they swap tickets, which I didn't know actually existed. And then there was that video that went viral of this guy who modified his phone so he could use it as a touch and go. How real that is, you know, you take your pinch of salt with that. The other one that was the top, which is actually combined, is basically Rambo and instant celebrity. Now this boy, he's not exactly Sylvester Stallone, if you can actually see, but why he's called Rambo is because he was the boy that was shot by the policeman accidentally, and he's like made a recovery. So the minute he came back to class, he became an instant celebrity, I suppose, for surviving it, you know. So he's sort of enjoying it right of now, considering how much pain he went through. Hey, you can't really belittle him, can you? Berita Harian went with Complot Naik Harga, and this is our word for the day: complot, conspiracy, collusion, you know, depending on which way you kind of take it. And you know, he talks about the Persatuan Penjual Alat Tulis, AIS, and Pengusaha Bas berpakat tetapkan kadar. You know, you're talking about basically, you know, the ice sellers, the stationery guys, you know, the real mafia don type people. And that's a disclaimer, I don't really think they're mafia dons. Basically, raising prices together and talking about stationery and ice. But the biggest one is actually the bus drivers. The bus drivers actually said they will abandon their buses. They will actually not drive if SPAD decides to arrest any of them because they decide to raise their prices. They said they have to at this point in time. But again, it's back to discussion, is it? Nobody sits down and actually discusses all this. Why was it done willy-nilly? So let's see how that develops. Now, finally, for the lighter note after all these things about raids and churches and Bibles, basically, is Harian Metro. I think Harian Metro is running a love theme this week as far as we can see, because yesterday it was about Cinta Hapak, where basically the guy didn't want her to bathe. Today is Penjara Kasih. Oh dear. You know, it's basically an episode of Locked Up Abroad from Nat Geo, if that's what you want. So basically, she was actually locked up for following her love, and then she was forced to eat non-halal food the whole time when she was in jail. So definitely not the same thing. But yes, it's definitely a theme with Metro this week. We'll have to see how it kind of goes. That's all for Morning Headlines. I am Nadia Hassan for BFM 89.9.